principle of die cutting is the same with every machine. All that changes is the combination of the plates, the brand or the size and shape of the die, and whether the machine is mechanical or electric. So first of all, you place your die on your plates. So in this case, we've got a combination of plates. The plates are going to be built up, what we call a sandwich, is built up until it comes to the depth where when passed through the rollers inside the machine, there'll be enough pressure on it to actually secure the cut. And the cut is made by the raised areas on the die, which are the blades. So I'm going to put my sandwich together. So in this case, I'm going to be using a couple of different plates. Now please don't worry if your plates get marked like these, or in fact they change shape. It's quite normal, you're not damaging the machine and you're certainly not damaging your die. So I'm going to place my die onto the plate. Now at this point there's something that we can do that will make our lives a little bit easier. First of all, the die moves around. To stop that happening, I'm going to work with a magnetic shim. This is a very, very thin tattered lace shim. You can see how thin it is by the way I could scrunch it up, and it will then flatten out. So I'm going to place that onto the base plate. Just smooth that out and pop my die in position. The die now isn't going to move, so it's securely held in place. I've got a piece of cardstock. In this case, it's 220 GSM. And I'm going to take my plate. This is the cutting plate that's going to go on top. So the blade of the die is going to cut through the cardstock, and then it may leave an impression on the plastic. That's all part of the process and quite okay. So with the rest of my plate, this is the combination that I'm using as my sandwich. I'm now going to pass it through the machine. So I'm going to feed those plates through and then start to turn the handle and hold onto the machine. Most machines have little rubber feet on them, and those little rubber feet make sure that the machine doesn't move on the table. Sometimes it'll take one pass to cut the die perfectly, and on other occasions you may want to use a second pass. I often use a second pass because it's so much easier to take the die back out of the machine the way that we put it in. So what will happen then? Well, you'll be left with the waste. You may find little pieces of the cardstock actually on the cutting plate, which we can wipe off. And then you've got the die itself. Now with some dies, you may have to push out the elements. With tattered lace, because they have a non-stick coating, we can literally just drop out these elements. Sometimes a short tap actually allows everything to pop out, but in this case, it's cut cleanly. Any excess little pieces that are still left in the die can be wiggled and will drop out naturally, or we can use a pokey tool, which looks something like this, to just push out those extra little elements. But there we go, there's our perfect cut. And I've also cut at the same time the little bird and the little bow. So all three of those have cut from my die. While I've got this die in my hand, I'm just going to explain to you about these little tiny bridges that we've got here that are holding these extra die pieces in place. If you want to remove them, anywhere there's a little tiny bridge that's been used in the manufacturing process to hold the three pieces together, you can snip that with a pair of pliers and cut these then individually if you choose to, or put them back in the centre or on any other part of your card and cut them again. So do bear that in mind if you've got multiple dies that arrive to you already attached.